What's up, fam? Big news dropped down earlier today. John Tortorella making Sean Couturier a captain, a healthy scratch. So far, it's resulted in the team responding to a 3-1 lead here early in the third period. So we're going to talk about the ins and outs of the scratch and what it means for the team. We're going to talk about a former Flyer coming back for one day and calling it quits. All here on Flyers Talk A2D.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of Flyers Talk here on A2D, live on A2DRadio.com. I am Matt Sitsuti, along with the Broken One, Rob Povia.
Welcome back, Matthew.
Thank you. Good to be back. And we've got Mr. Blue Shirt, Mr. Broadway, Mr. Switzerland, Big Bad Brad Ryer. And we are brought to you by the doc, Dr. Paul Vidal, over at Specialized Physical Therapy. If you got any aches and pains and you need to get them taken care of as soon as possible, hit the doc up, go to www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com and either head to Burlington or Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and he's got some of the best in the business working with him. You will not be feeling aches and pains after you go see him. So Specialized Physical Therapy. Okay, and the poll question, which definitely is going to garner quite a bit of debate. Sean Couturier being benched sends a positive message to the team. Right now, the Flyers are up 3-1. However, though, they did just give up a power play goal to the Toronto Maple Leafs. William Nylander getting the honors there. Third period still going. There's still plenty of time left, though, for the Leafs to get back into it. So, question is, gentlemen, do you believe it sends a positive message, or do you disagree? Do you think that this is a really bad thing to see happen here at this crucial junction of the regular season?
I agree. I think it does send a positive message to this team. And even if you feel a certain way, the new captain had a poor choice of words to the media today. You got to keep those frustrations in-house. Look, he's tired. He's frustrated with his recent play. I get it. He's just hitting the wall from not playing this many minutes for a long time. Let's face facts. He was out for quite some time. And we've seen his time on ice decrease massively as of late. In fact, Coots has played under 13 minutes 4 times over the past 14 games. Before this season, that's happened never. So we knew the minutes would add up. So the healthy scratch, I really think, for Coots right now is a good mental and physical break for him. But if the rest of the, it tells the rest of the team that no one, even the captain, is above an expected standard of play. And that's a key message to any rebuilding team.
Absolutely. Brad, how do you feel from the outside perspective on it?
Well, listen, we had John Tortorella in New York, okay? And John Tortorella feuded with Marian Gaborik. He had a big fight with Chris Kreider. He benched both of those guys. And you know what? They responded very well after that stuff happened. What he does, he doesn't care how much money you make. He doesn't care how many goals you score. All he cares about is how hard you're playing. And if he thinks that you're not playing as well as you can, he'll do whatever he has to do to get under your skin to poke the bear and get you to play better. I mean, that's just the way he is. If if the Flyers players didn't know how he was, then guess what? Wake up and smell the roses. He holds you accountable if you aren't playing well. So my message to them is play better.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be that guy.
I mean, looking at it from this perspective, there's one of two ways to look at this. You can look at this on a positive way, or you can look at this in a negative way. And really, that all depends on how Couturier takes this. Because, yes, it's one of those things where I see a lot of frustration clearly from that side of things here in Philly. you put your captain down for a period of time. I can get that. That's frustrating. However, though, like you were saying, Brad, play better. And Coots has been very frustrating in a lot of ways. The finish hasn't been there for him. His two-way play's been okay at times. And this is just my theory on it. By the way, Dales is in the chat if anybody wants to throw that out there. What's going on, brother? By the way, say hi to Pete and Tom and Rosca and Mike, as well as Mean Metal Mike as well. Thank you guys. The way I'm looking at this from is that if you're not playing well, then you should get benched at the end of the day. And that's what Torts is doing. He's looking at this from okay, you're not playing well. So what am I supposed to do? Like, keep you out there because you're wearing the C? And this is just my theory on it, and I could be wrong. Do you feel like Coots is kind of buckling underneath the pressure here? And the reason I say that is because he got the C midway through the year. He didn't get it in the offseason, where he had a chance to kind of develop in the early days of the season into the role. Now, of course, one can say, yeah, but he's worn an A for a long time. He got to work with Giroux, so he should know his role. He should know how it comes. It's different once you actually get it. And anyone who's had any high position of management will tell you the same. It's one thing to be the assistant. It's the other thing to be the guy at the end of the day. So that's where my head is at. Is Coots buckling underneath the pressure? Midway through the year, everyone's making their last push. Look at the Capitals. They have shot right up the standings out of nowhere to now threaten the Flyers to push them down into the wild card. And the Islanders aren't too far behind that. So you have a whole situation now building up where it's going to come down to the wire. So is he in a position where he didn't have time to really ease himself into the sea? And it's been thrusted upon him halfway through the year, and now he's feeling concerned? Or is he starting to buckle? Because it seems like in the past, in recent memory, they've always given their captains the C in the offseason. Giroux got his C in the offseason. Richards got his C in the offseason. Pronger got his C in the offseason. So do you guys think there might be something to that? Do you think that him getting the C halfway through the year, do you think that that's what's led to a little bit of this frustration and these problems?
Maybe a little bit. When you first started bringing up that notion, I was like, no, he's had the leadership role in the past, right? I get it. You get to see it's a different ball game. But I really go back to my rationale, Maddie. I think this is a player that didn't play hockey for 2 years and played a shit ton of ice time. He was actually on par by, I think, mid-January to set a record in terms of average time on ice. And we've seen that just drastically go down, and it coincided with naming him the captain. But I think this was going to happen anyway, right? Like that, you're going to see a player that, over the course of 82 games is going to wear down.
It's true. It's true. It's just a theory because, it is halfway through the year. You don't normally see someone get the C like that. Normally you wait until the end of the year to award something like that. So, was thinking maybe this has something to do with it. That's why it's caused those problems. But maybe that's not. Maybe it has nothing to do with it at all. Either way, the one thing I hope that we pull out of this, I hope that at least Coots pulls out of this, I hope he's mad. I hope he's angry. Because I want him to go out on that ice, and I want him to prove to Torts and to everybody that trusts him in this organization that you should have never benched me in the first place. Right. I want him to come out. Yeah, Rob?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump on you, Maddie. Finish your thought.
I was just going to say, I just hope that he comes out and he's a tank. And he comes out and he says, right, okay, I'm going to prove to every single one of you that what you just did here is BS. You should have never benched me in the first place.
Right.
That's the kind of result he's looking for.
Right.
Tortorella.
Yeah. Right.
I think so. And we saw a little bit already that it snarled him, saying words that maybe, you don't you let it slip in the moment, and of course the media is going to run gangbusters with it, push it out there, to really create a rift between a captain and a coach. But I mean, in case you didn't hear the direct quote, he said, "I've been putting in a lot of work for a while. I've been struggling, but I've been working on my game, and it's frustrating the way I've been treated around here lately. But it is what it is." So that's where the media pushed out there. But what they didn't really push out there was before he said that. He said, "I got to leave my ego aside, and hopefully the team finds a way to get a win here tonight, and I can get back into it soon." Was that highlighted anywhere? No, because that's not getting clicks, right? So I think, Maddie, it did light a little snarl as evident about, about him saying, being frustrated about being treated around here, and that's going to rub some fans the wrong way. But I think Coots in the past has shown that he's that type of player that, you know, will come out, will respond. And let's face facts, Torts did not just single Coots out. He said many players need to play better. But benching your captain, it says a strong message. But plus skipping the media pregame presser when you do so, when you bench your captain, sends a larger message to the media. People were pissed.
I mean, quite frankly, let's be honest here. Torts and the media don't always get along, so I mean that's kind of not a surprise that he decided to skip
understatement.
That. Right.
Torts doesn't care about the media.
So let's see here. We got Swoopy saying, "Absolutely, I love Torts. Torts isn't afraid to do the right thing when it's needed. Torts is awesome. It needed to be done for sure." And Me Metal Mike says he agrees to the poll. Priz is saying, "Trust in Torts. Whatever Torts wants to do, trust it." Joe's saying, "Am I reading the Coots quote wrong? Because the way I'm interpreting it, he sounds like a wuss."
He said, if you listen to it, I went back and listened to it, he kind of said it sheepishly, like he knew, like, shit, I shouldn't have said that.
Right. I mean, there are players who say things and they regret them later. I think that's one of those things he'll regret later.
Right. You just hope, Brad, you hope that it's not Torts rubbing him the wrong way like he's rubbed some other players the wrong way, and now he's getting disheartened. But you know what I mean? That doesn't speak to the character of Sean Couturier.
Well, Rob, I will say this because he did that to Marian Gaborik, okay? And guess what? Marian Gaborik all of a sudden was blocking shots. So,
Wow.
You know what? And at the time, I was like, when I saw Marian Gaborik blocking shots, I swear I almost fell out of my chair. Because, Gaborik was one of those guys who was waiting at center ice for the outlet pass. He never heard of actually playing in his own end. That was just the way he played. I mean, but anyway, I think as far as Couturier may just need a rest too, I don't think it's going to kill him to sit in the stands for a couple of games. Just get a rest, collect his thoughts, and then come back with a burr in his saddle and really come back and say, F the world. I'm back, and guess what? You're not going to stop me, and don't even think about sitting me down again.
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole point is the whole point is not to kill his ego. That isn't the point. The point is that he has to appreciate his ice time. It's an honor to be in the NHL, and it's an honor to get ice time. Okay, and when it's taken away from you, it hurts, and you want to play twice as hard to get that ice time back. So you know what? If Coots is tired, which he might be, as Rob made it abundantly clear, he hasn't played in 2 years, and it's not easy. He's not a young guy anymore, and he might be a little tired, and it's not going to kill him, as I said, especially if he's not injured, to sit a couple of games and just take a rest and then come back fresh and as a daisy and start banging some heads and looking good. By the way, speaking of banging heads, you gotta love Delorier tonight.
Yeah, with Reeves.
Yeah.
Go
right after Reeves.
It's good to see somebody shut Reeves up because I kind of had enough of his big mouth already.
Well, piggyback what you're saying, Brad. The Flyers do have, now they're not all playing well, and some of them are being healthy scratched, like Cam Atkinson, who hasn't played well at all. right? But they do have a surplus of forwards where you have at least some depth to where you could rest them, and you rest them tonight against Toronto.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. That's the
Right.
whole. But that's the whole point. It's not going to kill them to rest some of their veterans. Look, they've got an extremely tough schedule coming up, almost ridiculous. Almost insane who they have to play for the next
Yeah.
for the rest of the season. They really have a tough schedule. It will not kill Couturier to sit down for a game or two and put his feet up and catch his breath a little bit and then come back strong because they're going to need him. If they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to need him. It's not going to be easy. I mean, I looked at the schedule, guys. Last game of the season, guess who the Flyers play?
Rangers.
No, the Washington Capitals.
Yeah.
Guys,
Oh,
you
that's
may
right.
be
They do play
playing.
the Caps.
You may be playing for your playoff lives at the end of the season, and you know
This
what?
defense doesn't get healthy. You're right.
Yeah, they
Mm,
need Couturier to be ready to go, and Tortorella knows that. Okay, and he knows you got a lot of tough games coming up, and he wants to make the playoffs. Okay, there's no more rebuild going on right now in the heads of any of those guys, and there's no rebuild going on as far as Danny is concerned or Keith or any of the upper management guys. Right now, they want to make the playoffs. Don't think that they don't at this point. That would be for them. For them, that would be huge. They want these guys to get experience. And you know what? If benching the captain is such a bad idea, if he's not playing well, then I mean, I think the Rangers should have benched Zibanejad for a couple of games. I mean, he went 30 games without scoring a goal 5-on-5. So I wouldn't have been against it. And it's the same thing with Couturier.
well, unfortunately, right now, what the situation is, the Flyers are now at 3-2. Maple Leafs get a goal, and the Flyers are now going to be shorthanded again. So this is not good news for the Flyers right
They
now.
may want to call a timeout.
This would probably be a good time to do so.
Yeah, I think if I were them, I might call a timeout right now.
Joe saying, Christ, Flyers are going to blow this game because they can't clear the puck out of their zone and because the Toronto's first goal came on a bullshit penalty.
Yep.
Surprise.
Right.
Toronto is the favorite to the referees, just in case anybody doesn't know that.
Well,
They-
he
they
also
get-
said
They,
compounds that.
you know what I'm talking about.
Right. He says, now the Flyers are shorthanded again. I swear all the refs are Maple Leafs fans. John saying this.
Yeah.
Yeah. John saying, this looks like the Boston game the other night. Flyers standing around. Yeah, I mean, that's not good. I mean, this has been a problem with the Flyers for the last 3 weeks. They have had problems closing games out. They get into the third period with a lead, and they either take their foot off the gas, or they don't pay, or they're not paying attention to the game itself, or they think that the team is just going to stop playing all of a sudden. It's like, I don't understand. Like, what happened? Your effort in the first and second was fine. Now you're in the third and you stop caring. It's just, you can't play this way and expect to make the playoffs. You can't play this way in the playoffs either. You have to close games out. And this has been the problem with them for quite some time. And
this is where leadership comes in, Matty.
Yes, and this is why I think
Somebody's
Coots
got
has
a
been
lead
benched.
now.
This is why Coots has been benched too. It's a lack of leadership on his part, and I know that may be a harsh thing to say right now, but it's like, where is the leadership on this team to step up here and say, hey, we have a 3-1 lead here, boys. Let's not blow this. Considering the fact that you're only 1 point ahead of Washington, you need this. You need this win tonight more than ever before.
And Washington has a game in hand, too.
Correct.
Yep.
And they'll have 2 after tonight.
Right. So there's a lot of reasons that the Flyers should not be losing this game and blowing a 3-0 lead all over again. And I know Daly's saying it's not a lack of caring. They sit back and defend the lead, and because they do that, they get a little reckless with the puck, and that's unacceptable. But there's a great moment right there. Flyers just scored. So 4-2.
There you go.
Flyers are back in it. That's
Answer
what they
back.
needed.
Who
Yes.
scored?
Yes, that's what they needed. Get back into this game, 4-2 lead. That's what you need to do. Step up to the plate and make this happen. Brian saying, I do agree they need to win, and they just scored. Yes, they did. Me-mail Mike saying the Caps and Islanders are knocking on the Flyers' doorstep. That they are right now. And to check
was
who got
Detroit, by
that
the way.
goal, that goal went to, I think, either Lawton or Sanheim. I'm thinking Lawton because he was right in front of the goal. Yes, it's Lawton's goal. So Superman comes through, saves the day hopefully, for the Flyers on that one. Hopefully.
First goal down low. All the goals have been coming out from out high. Leafs screening their own goalie, for heaven's sakes.
Right. Right.
So it's Samsonov in net, right? That third go, Riley just left him out to dry.
I got to tell you, with the Leafs, the Leafs disgust me. And you know why?
Because of the Leafs?
Well, yeah, but that game against Carolina, they're up 3-1 with a minute and a half to go. And not only do you blow the lead and go to overtime, okay? In the overtime, the Leafs, of course, got a penalty. I mean, the Carolina, of course, they called a penalty on Carolina. So the Leafs had a 2-minute advantage, 4-on-3 in the overtime, and they didn't score. And then in the shootout, they didn't score either. And Jay Getzel, of all people, got the shootout win. And to be honest with you, I'm sitting there saying, they stink. Every time the Leafs look like they're gonna be like, you know, a real manly team, and especially against good teams, and do something out of worldly, they go back to being the Leafs again. I mean, it's not a coincidence.
Yeah,
it was playoff form. It's just like tonight. You get the game down to 3-2, and then what? Do they give up a shorty? Was that a shorty, or was it an even strength goal?
No, it was an even strength goal.
Okay, but still, you go and you give up a goal when you have the Flyers on the ropes. That's the Leafs for you guys.
That's true. That is the Leafs.
Playoff form. That's what I call it. Every time
How sweet it is.
Every time something like that happens, it's playoff form for the Leafs.
Now, Swoopy's saying, what makes you guys think Torts made him captain if he's now doing this? Did he not see this before? Why didn't he wait? Torts said great things about Coots 4 weeks back. Is that why he made him captain? Well, I think that, you know, Coots has always been considered the next captain in Philly, and I think that a lot of that narrative has continued. And it's because the play usually is there with him. You know, that play of the two-way play is what really is the key for him. But I think what's been really the problem has been the fact that the Flyers have lost a lot of winnable games, and they haven't looked like they've got any. I don't want to say they don't have drive, but I want to say that they have a lack of focus, almost a lack of clear cut. This is how we're going to get back into this. You could say that. You could say a lack of killer instinct. And I think also, too, we have to keep in mind there's another side of this, too. We're also still got other players that are still young, still learning. And some of them have yet to really grab that killer instinct yet. I mean, because this is the first time that they're playing on a Flyers team that's competitive. I mean, Forster, this is the first time he's on a team that's competitive. York, this is the first time he's on a team that's competitive. Definitely for Brink. You know, these just examples of young guys who are talented and are playing their butts off every single night. But this is the first time that they're playing on a competitive Flyers team. The last few years, the Flyers have been done the moment the season started. So again, this is another adjustment that we're also got to acknowledge for a young team. That's like, okay, this is you learning how to get a second gear, because other teams have a second gear right now that you might not have. Like, obviously, Toronto has a second gear, even if they don't show it half the time. And other teams have second gears. The reason why the Capitals are rearing back, can't deny it's because of the efforts of the veterans, players who have been in the playoffs multiple times, who know what it's like to have that second gear. It doesn't matter how old they get. They're putting the effort in that last push.
Too, by the way.
What's up?
That guy McMichael is some player too.
He is. He's playing very well. But that's the point. Like, some teams have that second gear right now because they're used to it. They're used to being in the playoffs. They're used to competing at this time of the year for those playoff positions. This is a team that's still learning that. I mean, Coots, TK, sure, Lawton, these are guys who've been on those teams that have been in playoff positions, but there are plenty of players who haven't been. And they're still learning how to get into that mode of, okay, we are playing for something in the second half. We're not just being spoilers here. We're not just trying to develop. We are actually trying to keep a playoff spot. There's a different mentality to that second half of the year when you're in the top end of the standings instead of the low end.
Yeah. And just to follow up on Swoopy's comment here. Yeah, I mean, Torts will praise you when you're playing well, but the second you're not, he's going to call it out. It's not what you did yesterday. It's what you're doing today and what you're going to do for this team tomorrow. So I think Torts, especially at this point in his career, really has his finger on the pulse of his team and knows when to pull these things.
Right.
Torts knows what he's doing. He is a master motivator. Okay, he's one of those guys. He doesn't care about your feelings. And if you're gonna get really upset with him, and get childish about it, you're gonna have a problem with him because he's not gonna put up with that. He wants your best. If he doesn't think you're getting your best, he's gonna bench you. He may have benched Couturier too because he thinks maybe he's just tired and needs a couple of games off. I mean that could be it too. And that's, look, as I said before, you guys have an incredibly tough schedule the rest of the season. There is no breaks for you. I think you still have to play Boston, correct?
Yeah, we're not done the season series with them.
Yeah, you're not done with them. I don't think you're done with Florida either, are you?
I think we still have one more game against them.
Yeah,
I think it's in Philly.
Yeah, you also have to play the Rangers twice.
Yeah, because we're not finished that.
Yeah, you have to play
the next 3 games you just mentioned, Brad. Yeah. Hurricanes, Bruins, and Panthers are the next 3 games. After
I mean that's you're playing the 3 of the best teams in the league.
Rangers. You got Canadians and Blackhawks. That's a little bit of a reprieve. Then you got Islanders, Sabres,
but you also
Blue Jackets, Canadians, Rangers, Devils, and Caps.
Yeah, but again, look who you have to play at the end of the season.
Right.
York is limping to the bench.
Last thing this team defense needs.
Yeah.
He hasn't gone down the tunnel though, so that's good news.
No, he probably should have just rub it a little bit.
He blocked a shot. He blocked Tavares' shot on his knee.
Rub a little dirt in it, son.
Yeah.
Get back out there, soldier.
Yeah.
Did you see the ugly hit on Ryan Lindgren the other day, guys?
I did not actually.
It looked brutal. And from what I heard, though, he's only week to week. Thank God. So they'll get him back for the playoffs. They might get him back for the regular season, but they'll probably get it back for the playoffs. But no Lindgren and no Trouba for the next couple of weeks. So the physicality in their own end is going to be a problem. And it's been a problem tonight for them. I couldn't tell you what's going on in the third period, but they weren't knocking guys out in front of the net the way they normally do. That's for sure. So that happens. Man. But also, holding guys accountable. Okay, and I'll give you another example. You notice Matt Rempe was done with his suspension, correct? Tonight.
Yes.
Okay, he was ready to play, and Laviolette's like, nah, not so fast, dude. Not so fast. You know what? You did something really stupid. You're going to sit on the bench now. You're going to miss a game now.
Lavi's as good as Torts in that regard.
Yeah, this is what coaches do. Okay, and you know what? If a guy, especially a guy like Couturier, they really, really need his leadership because they're going to have some tough games down the stretch. And listen, you guys want to make the playoffs. You've come all this way and played well, and you know what? You got a couple of rookies now on the back line. You know what? If you could make the playoffs with that, that's great.
So right now it is 4-3.
Oh no!
Toronto managed to score a goal.
How much time's left?
I believe it was Tavares. It's about 1:39, and there's an empty net for the Leafs to try and get the extra attacker out there.
I think they had the goalie pulled on that goal too, no?
They might have. I'm not 100% sure.
They will not get the tying goal.
If the Maple Leafs pull the goalie, it's a dangerous unit.
They will not get the tying goal. This is the Leafs you're talking about. Of
Well,
course, they made it 4-3.
But we have to remember that, the Flyers have had a hard time closing out games. So they should have been able to hold on to a 2-goal lead this late in the third period, and they let a goal get right in. So, again, it's like, my problem is still not solved here, boys. You had a chance to put this one away, and you let them right back in.
You'll get the empty net goal, and that'll be the end of it.
If they can get the empty net goal, great. But, that's the problem. It's like it's really concerning. It's very, very concerning watching the way that the Flyers have played these recent few weeks. I mean, I was there live when they played San Jose, and San Jose had them hemmed in their own zone at times. The fact that the worst team in the league is managing to keep you off the puck, that right there should be very, very concerning for the Flyers. It's like, you shouldn't be struggling against San Jose. This is a team that just traded away a lot of its top-tier talent, too, and you're still struggling. Like, that's not good. You have Krona in net, and Krona's a rookie. You got a terrible defense in front of the Sharks. It's like, come on, guys. You're barely beating them? That's a little concerning right there. What's up, Greg?
Listen, we lost in Anaheim. No, we lost to the Sharks in overtime.
Yeah, but at this juncture in the season, that's what's concerning about it. It's like, this is the time where you should not be losing to teams like that. Anyway, before we continue forward, like, subscribe, hit the bell, because we want you guys to get all the updates here. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell, boys. Why? Because that way you get to get all the updates here at A2D Radio, all the shows that are going live. We've got everything from hockey to wrestling to football to basketball. We've got everything covered here on A2D Radio. So definitely do that. Okay. So we're down to about 28 seconds left in the third. Still an empty net, but it is still 4-3 Flyers.
Face off?
No. The Leafs do have it, though, in the Flyers zone.
Okay.
Oof, they had a really scary chance right there. All right. Slowly ticking off here. Flyers have almost got it taken care of. Almost is the key word. All right. That puck is going to be waved off, and the Flyers have the win.
I told you could have taken your mortgage and bet it that the Leafs weren't going to tie it. Remember who you're talking about. Of course they made it 4-3. See, if they wouldn't be the Leafs if they didn't make it 4-3.
So, big win for the Flyers. They needed the 2 points. This is a critical spot in the season. You have literally one play. You have a team that was 1 point behind you in the standings. So, Flyers needed this win badly, and they were able to get the job done. They made it very, very interesting. Hopefully, they can take this and say, okay, take a deep breath. We got that win. We needed it. Now, next game, let's not make this as interesting.
Who's the next game? I know you mentioned it before. I can't remember.
I can't remember, and I mentioned it. Was it the Bruins? No, it can't be the Bruins again. There's somebody else.
Carolina, I think
Carolina?
you said.
Carolina, that's it. Yeah. Carolina, Bruins, and then Panthers.
Okay, you got to You got to beat Carolina now.
Carolina's on the road. Bruins are at home. Panthers are at home.
Of course, it has to be Carolina on the road.
So Joe, Bry, Wills, and John and Tim, what's up, guys? And Will saying, I kind of agree, but I don't really like how Coots responded to it. Again, I think the way you were saying earlier, Rob, I think it's something he'll regret that he said. I don't think he meant anything real serious by it. I just think he was a little frustrated in the moment.
He was frustrated in the moment, also frustrated that, he's trying to get himself out of the rut. And like I said, it was, I believe, 4 times in the last 12 games that he's seen under 13 times on ice. Some of that is fatigue, but some of that's not getting his number called and like, hey, I want to get out there. I want to, turn this around. You got to trust in the coach, and any frustrations, you got to keep that in house.
Right. Greg saying, disagree with the poll. Benching your captain is a bitch move from Torts. I don't know. I think it's more accountability than anything else. So I would say that was the move you had to make at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that feel like Greg.
Yeah, but this is why you got Torts to coach this team, guys.
Yeah.
They wanted somebody who's going to hold the players accountable.
Right. A lot of people out there are questioning, what is this Torts captain, or was this the front office's captain? Did Torts even want to name a captain? And there's all that being brought up. To me, I think that's all just conjecture. I think it's the guy's not playing well. He needs to sit. To your point earlier, Brad.
Right. I mean, personally, for me, I would say, again, this is just me. If I was in the front office and I was talking to the coach, I was like, let's not name a captain until the offseason. And that would have been my goal of it, only because it's a lot to throw on a guy midway through the year.
Yeah, but they were rewarding a team that was playing well above expectations, and it's like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, keep the positive. Now we have a captain, now we have that leader, a guy that's been here, one of your longest tenured players, if not the longest tenured player. I kind of agreed with it at the time. I felt like it was time at that point. I just, like the Dales was commenting earlier today saying that, this isn't Torts' guy. Maybe Torts wanted TK. I'm not hating that notion. I kind of, just to be honest, I would have preferred TK, right? I don't think he takes a shift off. I think Joe Orkowski put that in the comments earlier, right? But Coots, to your point, Maddie, that, center iceman, wins face-offs, great two-way player, that's been typically who you name captain.
Right, and I mean, Coots has fit that bill. He took over in that respect from Giroux. It's just, again, I think I'm just saying, I think his play's down, obviously, and, it's going to happen to everybody. But I think the frustrating fact, it's compounded by the fact that the Flyers were losing games that they should not have been losing, where you had leads and you blew them, most of them in the third period. The game against Boston was really bad, where they blew that, and then they blew a game against Washington that was winnable. There's been a lot of that going on lately, and I think that you compound that with the fact that Coots at times has had moments where he had a chance to make a huge impact and he didn't. I think that that's added to this whole thing. I mean, the perfect example was against the Rangers. Wide open net, 11 seconds left, and he pinged it off the post, didn't score. Right. And it's one of those things where I think it compounds and it becomes a big issue. Do I think it's one of those issues where it's going to snowball into something catastrophic? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be like one of those things, but I think it's one of those, it's in the heat of the moment. It's a bad time right now in terms of closing out games, getting the wins. And while you got this one tonight, you had a very hard time finishing this one off, and there's a lot of worry. There's a lot of worry. But again, also, like I was saying earlier, young players are also on this team that are not used to this. So there's another side of that as well. There's a lot of moving parts to this whole situation. It's more than just Coots' play too. There's a lot of questionable things. So the goaltending has had its issues. Sandstrom whiffed on a couple of shots in Boston. It's like, man, you should not have let that one get by you. Urson had a couple that should not have gotten by him. It's like, Jesus.
Right. And don't get it twisted. I mean, a lot of people want to point at the stat ledger on Coots and being like, this is your captain, this is your name, right? Your captain doesn't have to be your top goal scorer. It doesn't have to be, he's your leader. I mean, you think of, not everybody's favorite, but you think of Dustin Brown on the Los Angeles Kings, right? Not really tipping their stat sheets, but he was their leader.
But when he was a fact, I'm sorry, Rob, but when he was a factor in the playoffs. You want to know when he was getting on that score sheet? In the playoffs. Sure. I should know he scored a lot on the Sharks. This is a guy who always came up in the big game situations to show up for his team. And that's the way captain should be at the end of the day. Perfect example for the Flyers. Primo wasn't a goal scorer. The guy was a leader, though. The guy inspired you to play. He busted his ass out there on the ice. But he scored when it mattered. How many times we go back to those playoff games where he tied the game up against Tampa that we won and pushed Game 7? He scored the goal in the 5-0 tier. The man scored when it mattered. He didn't have to do it all the time, but when he did, it mattered at the end of the day.
You don't have to. It's not usually the biggest scorer on the team that's the captain.
Right.
I mean, the Rangers have Jacob Trouba as their captain.
Right.
He has 3 goals this year.
Right.
He has 23 points. I mean, he sticks his nose into everything, and he's tough, and he's mean, and the players respond to him because they're kind of afraid of him because he's the what do you call it? The dominant male
So,
in the room.
the alpha male.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, he's like the male alpha. I think a lot of it. Is it with the captain. It's like the alpha male of the room ends up being the captain, and whether it's a guy like Mark Messier who might be the best player on the team, or a guy, or Dustin Brown. He's a perfect example of it. Or isn't Jordan Staal the captain of the Carolina Hurricanes?
I think he is.
Yeah, I think he is too. And you know what? He doesn't score a lot of goals anymore. I mean, he's a checker on the fourth. He's a checker on the fourth line. He'll stop the other team's best player cold.
Right.
But that's usually who the captains are.
Right. Present Carbonneau, captain of the Habs, last championship team, and is in the Hall of Fame. He had 663 career points.
Exactly. Yeah, Carbonneau was but he was a really tough player.
Right.
Who excelled in the big spot.
So, next thing to talk about too, as we will of course continue on this conversation, but we should talk about this before we run out of time, gentlemen. Me and Metal Mike bringing it up here. Wayne Simmonds retiring tonight, and Wayne Simmonds signed a 1-day contract with the Flyers to retire as a Flyer, which was nice to see. You gotta love Wayne Simmonds. That was a guy who, you want to talk about leaders. I mean, sure, towards the end, he was taking one too many bad penalties for my liking, but during a time period where the Flyers really needed someone to step up and be that guy that, you know what, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. It's a tough problem, I'll handle it. Wayne was that guy. Somebody was kind of getting a little liberal with, say, the stick, or getting a little verbal, a little jaw jacking on the other side. Wayne was the first one to put him back in their place. Be like, you're not doing that. Not while I'm here.
And he also made sure that he owned the front of the net.
That too. And that's how he got a lot of his goals. And he was the leading goal
scorer
scorer one year for the Flyers.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
He owned the front. He owned the front of the net. That was his office. That's where he scored a lot of goals. And that was it. I mean, he tough player. And you know what? He wasn't the most talented player on the ice. But he was a very smart player, and he knew just where to go to score goals. And he was a pretty good defensive player, and he could throw them when he had to throw them too.
Absolutely. So, gents, ask this question here. What's like a favorite Wayne Simmonds moment?
A lot.
I know it's tough, right?
Yeah, that is tough. A tough question. I don't know. You started off, Maddie. I can't think of one individually.
I would say my favorite moment with Wayne Simmonds was, the guy, he's sitting in front of the net, and he was always scoring clutch goals. One of them I remember, we were in LA against his old team, and the Flyers desperately needed a goal. It was getting down to the very end of the game. He's right in front of the net, and he got a puck by Johnny Quick at the last minute, like the very last minute. And I was like, holy crap. And this was a big deal because the Kings, I think, were defending champs that year, and the Flyers would have been lucky to make the playoffs that year. So it was always a big deal when you face your old team and they're the defending champs. It's a moment I remember. It's just like sticks out of my head. It's like, you got to love it. showing up big against your old team, scoring a goal. Who cares if they won the cup last year? It's a new year.
No doubt, no doubt. One came to mind. It's not the a greatest moment, but it was definitely I think a very meaningful moment for me was during that outdoor game in 1819, right, when you knew Simmer was going to get traded at that deadline, right, and the way that they honored him, sticks up in the air during that outdoor game, and him getting emotional. That was a really special moment in his career here in Philadelphia. And I mean, let's face facts. I mean, he was a standout in LA before we got him for 3 seasons. He was a good character, guy for these Toronto Maple Leafs that we saw tonight. But he did spend 8 seasons here in Philadelphia. I'm glad he came home, to call it a career. It was just really nice to see.
Absolutely, it was nice to see. Yeah, it's always nice, and you forget how long somebody plays for your team. You know what I mean? Until they retire. Like, Jesus, he was here for 8 years. He was almost here for a decade. And you realize, wow,
He was there for a long time.
It's funny, you don't realize it though until after they've left, and you're like, wow, he really, like Jake. I didn't realize how long Jake was here until we traded him back to Columbus. I'm like, wow, he was here for 10 years. Jesus, it really doesn't hit you until you trade them back or they're gone, But Brad, do you have a favorite Wayne Simmonds moment?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I never really rooted for him, but
I could imagine.
I can remember that there was a game back in 13-14 when they ended up having to play each other in the playoffs, but not a playoff game. But I do remember the Flyers were on a power play, and I remember the Rangers were in the box, and Ryan McDonough was standing in front of the net with Wayne Simmonds, and it looked like Ryan McDonough had him completely boxed out. Okay, and he was kind of holding his stick, and Wayne Simmonds kind of took his stick and reached over with one hand and kind of wristed it, and it went in on Lundqvist, and the Ranger announcers were saying, we're praising his strength to be able to outmaneuver, because he didn't really outmuscle McDonough. He just kind of did a little old trick. He was able to kind of take his stick, get it underneath, and wrist it with his right hand past Lundqvist. And I don't think Lundqvist was expecting the shot because it looked like he was boxed out.
Right.
That's a goal that I do remember, and I believe it was on a power play. And, it was at the Garden, so that I remember too. And those were the kind of goals he used to score, and he was hard to stop. When he got in front of the net, get him out. Not only was it hard to get him out in front of the net, but he was kind of a grouchy guy. If you tried to push him out of the net, you might get beat up. So that was no fun either.
Right.
Thinking of your blue shirts, Brad, back in 14, now you guys took the series, but Simmer putting up that hat trick in Game 6.
That was nice. That Game 6, yeah.
Yep. And then
that was a good one.
And then they won the Rangers won the classic Game 7, 2-1. I think both teams, their fourth line scored goals that game.
Yeah.
If I remember, Brian Boyle and Dominic Moore scored for New York. And somebody on your fourth line scored for. No, I'm wrong. It was Giroux. Giroux had scored for the Flyers in that game.
Right. He almost scored again, but he just sailed a puck over the crossbar, and it was the best chance the Flyers had in the last 2 periods of the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Flyers were dominating the third period. They just couldn't. They just were always in the wrong place at the wrong time in that period.
Right. Lundqvist, of course.
Rebounds. Yeah, there were rebounds everywhere, and they just couldn't quite get to them, or they get to the rebound and miss the net. That kind of thing.
Yeah. So, another Wayne Simmonds moment I loved was when he went after Brad Marchand, because Marchand had done something dirty. I believe he did a hit from behind on one of the players. Yeah, what a shock. Yeah. And Wayne was about ready to rip his head off, which unfortunately the ref stopped him from doing that. He probably would have done the NHL a favor if he had ripped his head off. But, it is what it is.
Right.
He took a pretty good somebody gave him a real good shot a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember who it was, but I saw it on highlights. and whoever it was going to get suspended, but they didn't suspend him. And I was thinking, well, you know what? Probably the only reason they didn't suspend him is because it was Marchant, and
Right.
it doesn't count.
Right.
For sure. Go back to the beginning of his Flyers career, Matty. I had to look this up, I'll be honest. But it was in his second game against the Devils, which was a 3-0 shutout. He scored his first goal in that game, but I do remember the fight with David Clarkson, his first as a Flyer. And that just represents all the gloves that were laid down by the Wayne train.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, man,
Ones.
lots of great moments from Wayne Simmonds, the Wayne train that was rolling through the Flyers for about 8 years there. Great career that he had for Philly. It was nice to see, and all the best to him as he prepares for the next chapter in his life. Who knows? Maybe he'll join the Flyers analyst team or become a play-by-play guy or color commentator. Maybe
that's what I wanted to ask you guys. Like, what do you think is next for him? Do you see him in the front office as a coach? I mean, he's been a mentor to Zayd Wisdom, who could really follow in his footsteps in this organization.
It's true. I mean, that would be cool. Maybe he becomes like a scout. Maybe he takes up what LePerriere was doing for a while. Because I know LePerriere is doing the coaching for the Phantoms. So maybe he takes up the spot that LePerriere has, where he's in charge of player development. I mean, there's possibilities there. There's possibilities for him to be in those positions,
Depends what he wants to do.
Yeah, it depends,
Yeah, I mean, I never heard him speak, so I don't know how well spoken he is, whether he could actually go on the radio or TV. But if he's well spoken, there's no reason why he can't go to your post game show.
Well, I think he'll have to get 2 dentures put in because he has no teeth up here. So
does any hockey player really?
Yeah. He'll have to do what Bobby Clark had to do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Strahan was missing one, remember?
Yeah.
Mike Strahan. he got a little cap in there now, so he talks normal.
Right.
I mean, he used to talk like Mike Tyson before.
Right. That's okay. He'll eat your heart and eat your children later. But so
how'd your wife? How'd your kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's your wife? How's my kids?
Ew.
Whoops.
All right, gents. So as we get ready to wind this thing down here, back to the whole Couturier thing. Any final thoughts we want to throw out there on this whole thing? Even though the Flyers get the win tonight without Coots, is there anything we want to throw out there before we close up shop for the night?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, Matty. With him out of the lineup, or even if he takes like a lesser role, it's an opportunity for other guys to step up. And we've seen Morgan Frost step up at the center ice position. He had that dazzling goal the other day going between his legs, and another one tonight from out high. So that's what you want to see. You want to see guys stepping up, next man up mentality. Right, because you're going to deal with injuries, and this is part of the learning process right now that's going on in Philadelphia. So it just presents an opportunity, and also gives Coots some rest.
Absolutely. Tom,
What's
going on, brother?
Before we go, do you think he's going to be benched again for the next game, or do you think he'll be back at it next game? I mean, the lineup did win a big game.
I would say they'd probably be back. I mean, that's my feeling.
I think Torts got his point across.
Yeah, he got his point across. I think he'll be back. I mean, there'd be no real reason to keep him out for 2 games.
Only if he needs more rest, like you said, Brad, right? If he needs some more time for those legs to get back underneath him, or, right, did that comment really ruffle some feathers? Because if we see him out again, I'm going to side more with that, and then be like, oh no, maybe we got a problem here.
Maybe.
I don't think it'll go that way, but
I hope. Yeah. I would hope not. I mean, the only
understand that fear.
the only thing I can think of is if he doesn't come out and play the next game, maybe Tortorella really just wants to give him a couple of days off so he can get his legs back.
Sure.
Hopefully.
I mean, you guys
too.
watched him. Did he seem a little slower,
Yeah.
or just less involved?
I think he was a little bit, but not. I hadn't really noticed it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like he was really dragging ass out there on the ice.
Face-off percentage is going down, and that's a red flag for someone that's always dominated the face-off circle.
Yes,
well, that's
that's the more concerning
the strength.
part. Yeah,
the strength part is he might just be tired.
it could be. It could be. Maybe he hasn't gotten his wind back yet because of all the time he missed. But we'll see as this develops. Hopefully, he'll be back in the lineup for the next game against Carolina. And Tommy was saying, love what I'm seeing from Morgan. I will say yes. Frosty, he had some problems early on, but it looks like he's gotten by those now. I know he had some injuries that weren't helping him, but it seems like now he's getting his game back under control and he's back in it. He's back in the swing of things.
Yeah, and credit to Tortorella for bringing him along.
Absolutely, and it's good to see. So hopefully he can keep that up as we continue forward in there. And with that, I think that pretty much takes care of it. So fingers crossed that this whole situation with Coots is nothing serious and that, cooler heads will prevail. Coots will get a chance to take a deep breath, kind of get his feet back under him, get ready for the next game against Carolina. Torts, obviously, I know he has a history of being hot-headed, but it has seemed like he's kind of mellowed out a little bit more in his older age. Not to the point of the media, but at least towards like players and what have you. He's a little bit more, I guess, more in a mentor role than necessarily being the disciplinarian dad of the team, like you could have said back in the day.
He could still do that, though.
He could still. It's not that he can't. I just think that he's learned a lot over these last. I think that run in Vancouver taught him something. Taught him a little bit about the situation and how players change.
Yeah.
So,
but he's gotten 2 more chances since then. So
it's true.
I don't think anybody really gave up on him, and I think the Flyers were lucky that they were able to get him.
Right. I mean,
the right place at the right. Talk about being available at the right time. Right. At the right time. I mean, there were 2 guys who I always liked as coaches, Paul Maurice and John Tortorella, and I just always thought, one of these days they're going to get the kind of team they want, and they're going to really do well with them. Just seems like that's going to happen with both.
Absolutely. So we thank everybody for joining us for this edition of Flyers Talk on A2D Radio. We will see you guys next week. And as we get further along, hopefully the Flyers will build off of this win and keep pushing forward in the positives, and the whole Coot situation calms down and he's able to get back into the rhythm of things in the preceding games ahead. Until then, we were brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. If you have any aches and pains, the Dr. Paul Vidal, specializedphysicaltherapy.com, so you don't have any more aches and pains. Until next time, you stay safe, you stay healthy out there, and we'll see you next week for more Flyers Talk on A2D. Peace and love, everyone.
Rest in peace, Chris Simon.
Yeah, that's a shame.